Hey, welcome everybody. So this is Todd, one of the co-founders of Xorosoft, and I have Brian, who's our director of sales at Xorosoft, and we have our amazing customer here, Krista Lamb from Deatschwerks. And we are doing this case study where we'll be going through some questions on, how implementation of Xorosoft has helped Deatschwerks in their day-to-day business processes, and we'll get kind of first-hand experience from Krista. So Brian, you have the mic now.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Yad. Hi, Krista. Happy New Year. So yeah, thanks for agreeing to do this video case study with us. We will try to make it as painless as possible for you. But yeah, we have a series of questions here that we'd like to ask and get a candid answer, and I guess we can kind of start from there. So, obviously, first of all, tell us who you are or what you do, and maybe a little bit about Deatschwerks.
I'm Krista Lamb. I'm the Director of Products and Customer Experience at Deatschwerks. We're a manufacturer of high-performance aftermarket fuel systems.
Cool. And where are you guys based?
We're based out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. We have a 34,000 square foot facility just off the street from the Capitol building, actually.
Oh, nice. And perhaps tell viewers kind of what sales channels or markets that you sell to. Is it direct to consumer, business to business, bit of both?
Fantastic question. So the majority of the business, I would say 70% or so, is through wholesale distribution. Then a smaller percentage is distributors and what we would call jobbers, those folks who own a shop and they're buying for a build. And then the kind of the finality of, and the smallest portion is our retail direct to consumer, about 10% of the business.
Correct. Right. And that's via Shopify.
That's via Shopify. And we do have some like walk-in, call-in business.
Perfect. Cool. Thank you. And prior to joining Xorosoft, how were you managing your business? What software were you using? Perhaps highlight any challenges that you're experiencing, and what led you to choosing an ERP?
So we were using QuickBooks and probably half a dozen or more spreadsheets. So very manual entry. We were seeing at least 2 data entry, literally double the exact same information into the ordering system and onto a spreadsheet. And then somebody else would have to take that one spreadsheet and enter a portion of that information into another spreadsheet. And then when an order was finished, they would see that the order was finished and that it got shipped, and then we would manually copy and paste tracking number out and send out an email. So it was just very, very touch heavy, and everything was paper driven. We were literally printing off every single order, and people were getting off of their desk and were walking it into the shipping department and putting it in a file. And you can imagine, papers, the door would open, some would fly off, we'd lose these orders. We didn't know we had an order lost until maybe a customer called in upset. So it was very arduous in that manner.
Very, very, very manual,
yes.
Lots of chances for error.
Yes, yes.
And perhaps, slow.
Very slow.
Yeah.
We also were ordering and manufacturing by tribal knowledge. I just, the person who was in the purchasing seat would go, well, I feel like we need these things. And the production supervisor would go, well, I've been here forever. I know we will need this much of this and this much of that, but it was just inherent knowledge. It was captured anywhere that was really useful. There were, I'm not saying we didn't have min maxes and things like that, but really understanding what we needed and when we needed it was a challenge.
Understood. So now that you have an ERP under your feet and a few years in, how has Xorosoft specifically been able to improve those features, those requirements?
So when we look at it, we're seeing that there was a tremendous amount of process improvement that the team brought to us as we went through the implementation process. Our team would talk about how we were doing things, and the Xoro team would listen and say, well, that's kind of like this. Walk us through the different ways the software could work.
Mhm.
And by the time that's all said and done, we're seeing improvements in order processing. We're seeing it in the manufacturing production. We're seeing it in shipping. The shipping department probably has seen the biggest amount of change. Inventory precision, we actually know what we have and where it's going. We can see landed costs. That was not something we were able to see before. No more double, triple entry, no more Excel spreadsheets. We've automated some of the larger customer PO imports. So that has been a tremendous time savings. And Shopify, our website, now seamlessly integrates as well. And that's been great. We just have someone check it in the morning, and we check however many orders came through that night and create manufacturing orders, and it goes. So we've really seen a lot of time savings, and we've seen a lot of enhancements to our day-to-day interfaces with our data. So it's been a tremendous boost to what I'd call like the business operations of the company.
Sure. Awesome. Thank you. So you touched on implementation there.
Mhm.
So tell us how did that go? Obviously, implementations can be scary.
Right.
With obviously without its challenges, but how was that experience dealing with our team and your team both collectively?
So I had never done an ERP implementation before coming to Deatschwerks. I had been a customer of some companies that had done it and had a very scary viewpoint of what an ERP implementation was. But then I've also done major software implementations within large companies. I would say that this was the most seamless, least disturbing to the business implementation of any software I've ever seen. We were able to very easily gather our information and clean it up. It was fairly clean, thankfully, and then import it and see that things worked as expected. We would have the trainings and we would be shown this is how it's going to work. And then we'd go back, we'd pull our data out, we'd do the different processes that we'd been walked through by your team. And then we could even send it back and say, hey, can you check this if we were uncertain of it? Or, hey, I'm running into this particular field is erring on me. And there was always met with positivity. You didn't feel like you were bothering anyone. It was just a very pleasant experience, which was wonderful, because it's already, it can get frustrating when you run into those kind of errors and you don't know why. And so that team being there is that backbone of support through this. And I think we did 2 or 3 weekly calls each week through it to just make sure everyone was on the same page and we were getting done what needed to get done. And we would be able to go over questions and clear up any confusion just very quickly. And we did it with our whole team here and the implementation team there. So, that they say sunshine's the best antiseptic, and it really kept from there. Nothing ever really got away from us. So it went really quickly. I think once we started really doing things, we were like 2 months to live, which was great.
That's great. Yeah, that really is quick.
We're small business. We're smaller business, and we had super clean data. I've never been in any business that had such clean data, so we were blessed in that sense.
That's great, especially with all your travel.
Yes.
That you're able to get that done. That's
Yes.
Wonderful. Perfect. Well, obviously, there's us, there's you, and then there's your customers. So,
right.
How has your adoption of an ERP helped perhaps with your customer experience or your customer service team? Has it made its way down the road to them yet?
Yes, and actually very quickly. So what you had was the instant elimination of 2 and 3 times entry points of the same data, which was something that was causing people a lot of heartburn. And so that immediately helped. it actually freed up a lot of resources internally so we could allocate a person into a different department because we no longer needed a full-time FTE in order processing because we've made that many improvements in the process. So that was fantastic. And they moved over into a customer service side where now they're able to interface and take care of the customer. They can tell them exactly where their order is in the system, exactly what the ship date expectation is, where their product is in the manufacturing process, and how many hours or days that takes to get done. So the visibility has been amazing. And we're not running into shortages like we once were. So that has made that sales and customer service person not have to deal with that portion of the job where they're like, oh, that's on back order. We're not seeing that. We're not having to say that because of that visibility, which has been very nice.
Nice. Perfect. So, you mentioned earlier that you finally were able to see your cost of goods sold, obviously, which is a really important piece of any business.
Right.
How is Xorosoft been able to give your team, with either yourself or upper management, the ability to make better business decisions?
Well, when you're looking at it, like our visibility to that day in, day out of what's happening with the dashboards, that live view, we can see what our open orders are, what our invoices are. We can see who the top performing customers, what the top performing part numbers are year over year, all at a glance in real time.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, oh, we have some reporting, I think is a little bit undersold. There's 75 plus reports just in the standard package.
Yeah.
And many of those, you have the ability to just drill to infinity. You can just get in there and really get down. So we can see what the top performing part number is for each customer, what customers are buying, which categories, maybe where they're not. You can see all the winners in all the aspects of the business, but then you can also see like where are things trailing off, and we can kind of go regain that business. Sure. The other thing that's been kind of interesting is tracking expenses and that change in COGS. We couldn't see landed cost. And so the margins were, I would say, directionally correct. Now we can see any small change in raw materials. We can see customer discount changes and how that affects us on margin, and really be able to manage the business better for max profitability.
Great. I want to touch a little bit on our Shopify integration. Are you seeing a lot of automation, a lot of improvements with, the new, how Zoro has a native integration built to Shopify, and has that improved some workflow?
So, I mentioned that we saw so much of a order processing that we were able to reallocate a resource. Well, from the Shopify side, we were having to have an individual go into Shopify every day and just type into the other ordering system every single aspect that the person had already, the customer had already done that work themselves. We couldn't use that. Now, Shopify is connected with Zoro and kicks the orders over into Xorosoft. It shows up in our order center as an open sales order. We're able to look at it, say, okay, here's everything. This item needs to be manufactured. Create a manufacturing order for it right there from the interface, release the order, and now we're done. It's already telling Shopify that the order is being processed. The customer's aware what's going on through the Shopify app, and we're able to quickly service that order. So our cost to serve those web orders has really decreased drastically. It takes 1/10 of the time to work a Shopify order that with a much better margin because we're not going through distribution. So that's been a really nice boost.
Awesome. Very cool. So I guess, finally, for anybody who's viewing this video that is on the fence with selecting an ERP, or specifically Xorosoft as an ERP, would you give a recommendation and perhaps highlight on some of the things that they can expect?
Absolutely. I would say that this is, I looked at a dozen ERP systems, and I would double down on you. If I had to do it all over again, I would pick you again. The team has been absolutely fantastic to work with. There's a lot of out of the box features that actually make sense to run a business. There's so many software platforms are developed without really the business use in mind. And so many of the reports, so many of the modules, we haven't had to do any like customization. That's unheard of in a business like ours. So you've really thought through from a manufacturing standpoint, what is needed. And they're really great for out of the box. The implementation time was very, very short. You could make it more complex, I suppose, if you wanted to, but it was really easy. The team and the support is fantastic. And then when we have needed some customizations, it's been pretty quick turnaround on those kinds of things. And what's really cool to see is like the accounting gal might have some questions, and she'll just send a ticket in, and by the end of the day, we've got an answer. I mean, you're not going to get on the phone with the QuickBooks or some of these other folks and talk to the accounting expert and hear from them in 24 hours. That's just never going to happen. So having that personal touch, really being able to talk to some experts in each module has been very, very helpful. Yeah, I highly recommend going with Xorosoft.